Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the fantasy books that I personally love that are on Kindle Unlimited. If you don't know what Kindle Unlimited is, it is basically a subscription where you can pay $10 a month and you can borrow up to 20 books, but you have to return them before you can borrow more past that 20. I personally think it's worth it if you're going to read more than 2 books a month, because there's a lot of good books on Kindle Unlimited and it's basically free when you pay that $10 per month. I personally read about 5 to 6 books on Kindle Unlimited per month. That's why it is worth it for me. But I know some people would prefer physical books and whatnot, but I'm a Kindle girly through and through. So we are going to talk about some of my favorite fantasy books that are on Kindle Unlimited for you to borrow. The first book is the Book of Azrael. I don't feel like this book gets as much hype as it should. It is the first book in the Gods and Monsters series. Now, I've seen this on TikTok a little bit, but what intrigued me is it is categorized as a dark romantasy, and I've never read one of those before, so I picked it up and I devoured this thing. It is so long. It seems a lot longer than it is, but it's almost 500 pages, but that's with very small writing. So it is a pretty hefty book. It took me about 4 or 5 days to get through, but what is different about it is I feel like a lot of fantasy books nowadays are all the same, whereas this one was pretty different from anything that I had read. So this follows Diana and Liam, and Diana is a girl who was made to be the way she is to save her sister. Everything she does is for her sister. Now, she has become a weapon, and Liam is a god. Now, Diana is the morally gray one, and Liam is such a cinnamon roll MMC. Like, I loved this dynamic, and it kind of had different tiers of people. So it had like humans, celestials. I don't even know what Diana was. That name is so weird. Like Igmaruthans or something. But it's pretty easy to follow. If you're one of those girls who doesn't like a lot of spice in their books, then this is a great option for you, because it is very, very slow burn until about 80%. And then one thing happens, and then that's it for the rest of the book. And this ends on such a cliffhanger. But thankfully 2 more books are out, and I think it is a 6 or 7 book series, so I'm excited to see where this one goes, and it was really, really good. The next one is Metal Slinger. I am obsessed with this book, and I will shout it to anybody who will listen. If you are a beginner in fantasy, or you're just starting out with fantasy, start with this one. This is such an easy book to follow because it is mainly humans who have been given a little bit of power. But this book is so well written, and for it to be Rachel Snyder's, I think, first fantasy book that she's written, it was amazing. But basically it follows Bryn, who was kidnapped as a baby and taken to Alaha, I think is how you say it. But she spends her whole life working to be able to go to the market that they only go to like once a year, but you have to become a member of like the guard to do it. So she finally does that. She steps foot into the market and immediately is recognized, and so they come back to get her, and the whole story follows that. She's basically a lost princess. But the ending of this book, I don't think I've ever read a plot twist that was this good. This has been my favorite plot twist of any book I've ever read, because the minute I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, why did I not see that before? And then everything started clicking into place. Like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I cannot wait to read the next book to see what ends up happening after the plot twist. This was amazing. Probably one of my favorite books of 2025. And I don't know what's going to top it. So the next one is Daughter of No Worlds. This book is by Carissa Broadbent, who wrote A Serpent in the Wings of Night. And I know that seems to be everybody's favorite book by her, but Daughter of No Worlds is mine. This book is, again, I would say pretty good if you're a beginner to fantasy, but it's also very different because she is a slave and is promised her freedom. When she earns enough money to buy back her freedom, she's basically laughed at and becomes a very BA. And I'm not going to say what she does, but they deserved it. And basically goes to where she's always wanted to live and says, teach me your ways. I want to become like one of you. And if you liked Throne of Glass and you like Quicksilver, this is like those two books kind of had a baby in a way, because it's very much like Selena in Throne of Glass, but has the mind like Quicksilver, where there's something in there. And I think it's just very unique, and it's really, really good and does not get the hype it deserves. And there's, I think, 3 books after it, so definitely worth a read. And while we're on it, Serpent in the Wings of Night is another great one. Basically, this story follows Araya, who is a human living in the vampire world because she is adopted by the vampire king, but she spends her night hunting vampires and basically gets thrown into this trial where she has to prove herself, and Rain takes liking to her and basically keeps her safe during the trials. It's got a lot of those fun games and trials, but it's not exactly like every other games and trials book that you've read. It's pretty different because it is just like one human thrown in there with a ton of vampires, and she's trying to survive with no power. So it's fun. And then there is another one after this, so it is a completed duology, and then there's like a little spin-off series after that she's writing. So if you like it, then I thought it was pretty unique, and it's completed, which is a plus. Now for my favorite duology of all time, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. This was my favorite duology ever, and probably one of my favorite reads of 2024. So basically it follows Elspeth, who has a nightmare living in her mind. And the magic system in these books is so unique and different because it follows 12 cards, and basically to get something you have to give something. Now I hope she comes out with some novellas because I would love to hear more of Elspeth and Raven's story. And the ending of Two Twisted Crowns was crazy. Normally the first book in the duology is better, but in this case I feel like the second book in the duology was much better. And we did a podcast on this if you've read them and want to kind of dive into it with us, but this was, I think, all 3 of our favorite duologies of last year. Next is, of course, this Cruel and Lovely. This is a lesser known book, but it is a completed series. So this book follows Priska and Lorian. Priska basically lives in this poor town, but if you were born with power, then you have to feed it back to the land, basically, and then they give you back a portion of what you've given when you come of age. But if you haven't given your powers to the land, then you could be killed. So basically her mom hid her and didn't give her power back, and so she's a very powerful young woman, but they find out about it, so she has to run. She runs into these mercenaries, or so she thinks, who end up being Faye Lorian, who is just one of the best MMCs I've read in fantasy. Definitely top 5, I think. I absolutely love him. And I've read the first 2 books in this series. I have 2 more to go, but I love both of the main characters. I love the side characters. This is not a very well-known series, but I think it is on up and coming. Stacey Stark is writing a book about Medenia, who is a character in here, and she's writing like a little spin-off series on that. So there's plenty to read, and it's all free on Kindle Unlimited. And this is, Mackenzie read it first, and then she got me hooked on it, and so now we just kind of recommend it to everybody because it is so good. And then a couple Katarina told me to add in that I haven't read yet was The Prison Healer and Zodiac Academy. She loves both of those, and The Prison Healer I think is very good for a beginner fantasy reader. But if you're into dark academia and like Harry Potter and stuff like that, then Zodiac Academy would be a good one for you to read, but it is a pretty long series, so keep that in mind if you want to start that. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!